Just to start out this video, I wanted to give a real quick thank you to all of you guys for all of the amazing support that I got on the last video. It really means a lot more than you might realize, and I just wanted you all to know how much I appreciated all those kind words in the comments and how all of that really helped to motivate me, to push me to make progress as fast as I have over this last month. And yeah, so with all that said, thank you again so much, everybody. And let's get into all the progress that I made this last month.
And let's just kick that off with a quick recap. So to start with, I gave everyone a sneak peek at my social life when I failed at talking to a camera for several minutes straight, eventually leading to me just giving up and making a slideshow instead. After that, I proceeded to do some modeling to create a base for the final concept. And finally, I painted over that 3D model to create the final concept piece. Coming off of that feeling pretty unstoppable, it was finally time for me to open up Unreal Engine 5. And just like that, we were in. First things first, learn how to move a cube. Here's a screenshot of the tutorial I followed to help me learn the basics of Unreal Engine, and I'll also provide a link in the description if anyone's interested in trying it out as well. With such a beautiful scene in hand, it was finally time to learn how to make a door open. But just not before adding a few more decorations. For those who might not know, Unreal Engine has this blueprint system, which is basically just a visual node-based system for coding. At this stage, the blueprint still didn't make any sense to me, but we'll get more into those later on in this video. The doors, they will all bend to my will now. So here's where things get a little more interesting. Now that I've mastered the tutorial, it was time for me to embark on something a bit closer to the actual project I'm working on. Of course, the project I'm working on, as I mentioned in the last video, is going to be a corn maze, and is going to be a horror game. So naturally, the first place I went was designing a very simple, straightforward maze, something I could use to continue to get used to Unreal Engine and its interface and all of the different options and tools it had within it. And eventually, a bit further on here, I'm also going to be using it to get used to the blueprint system. Please don't mind the Minecraft aesthetic, but here is a very short video of me just sort of wandering through the full maze with all the textures and everything for the first time. Here I am suffering through probably my least favorite part of this last month, trying to sort out the widget system and make these menu screens was a bit of a nightmare, to be completely honest. Yeah, nothing wanted to go into the spots that I wanted them to go in. What you see here is actually me pretty much finishing them up because I already cut out more than half of the footage, as most of it was just useless video of me trying and failing to make buttons and text and put things in the right spots, because it's an interesting system and I'm sure it works when you know what you're doing, but I definitely did not know what I was doing. So yeah, hopefully I'll figure it out for the next menu screen I have to create.
"2,000 years later."
And here we are at last with a menu screen that actually sort of works. If you're wondering what the options button does, don't worry about it. It does nothing. The quit button just takes you out of the game. But all I really care about is that the start button takes you to the level with the maze inside of it. So yeah, that's a win in my books. This funny little camera guy here is actually just the default first-person character model. So what really matters here is that I have decided at this point that we really need to take this game up a notch in scariness, which of course involves making it darker. So if we're going to make it darker, we need a way to see, obviously. So what I'm doing now is I'm adding a flashlight to the first-person character model, so that we can turn it on and off and see our surroundings in the dark. Another thing that might help up the spook factor of this game is adding some sort of a cheesy little jump scare. So right now I'm just making a very plain, basic board or signpost pretty much that's going to rotate out in front of the player's view and pretty much just jump scare them, I guess. enjoy watching me struggle a lot here with figuring out the rotation of the sign until eventually I figure out to put a pivot point at the bottom that lets me rotate it a lot easier. And everything just kind of works a lot more smoothly from there. And finally, I felt it was time to turn out the lights.
Okay, I admit it wasn't that scary, and I did add a few sound effects to give it a little bit of a boost, but genuinely the first time that I hopped in there after turning the lights off with just my dinky little flashlight, uh, it really did actually creep me out. I was almost expecting something to jump out at me in the maze, even though I knew I had made it and nothing else was in there.
For this next part here, you're just going to see me, after I've imported the models of the corn stalks that I made in Blender over into Unreal Engine, now I'm just kind of painting the scene with them, creating a vague maze-like shape. But it was really interesting to see just how easy it was to import those models. And hopefully that remains true as I go and add more and more complex models into the scene as well. After a little break, I decided that the next thing I needed to work on should be something a little bit different, just to sort of break up what kind of work I was doing and give me a bit of a rest from all of the Unreal Engine learning that I was doing. So for this part now, I'm going to be working on a logo design, and this is in the hopes that this won't be just a single game, but will be part of a series, an anthology. So I've been planning for a while to create a logo, a title logo for that anthology series that this game will be a part of. And yeah, so along with that, I also contacted somebody who I've worked with before with my previous short film to start making some music references for this game. So while this speed paint is playing, you guys are going to get to listen to his first draft of sort of a creepy farm gramophone vibe, I guess, is the best way I can think to describe it. And hopefully you guys agree that it's something that you feel would fit in if you were walking alone through a corn maze and you heard this coming from somewhere around the corner kind of thing. But yeah, so listen to that and also watch the speed paint, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So yeah, there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed that and got the right vibe from the music. The composer's name is Christian. He's a really great guy. I've worked with him, as I mentioned on my previous short film, and I would highly recommend him. So I will link his Fiverr page in the description below. But yeah, he also composed actually this background music that I use in my videos, the one that you're hearing right now actually. So he's made some pretty impressive stuff, and I'm just really happy to get to work with him again on this. So actually, as I'm editing this video and about to release it actually, I just realized that there's a big empty space here where it's just speed painting. And at the same time, I also realized that I haven't done much to explain the premise of these stories that I'm creating, of the universe that I'm building around them. So I figured I'd just take this opportunity to bring everyone up to speed a little bit more without spoiling anything, of course. So the first thing that comes to mind is you might have picked up a little bit on this if you have watched my short film on the channel, but effectively everything in this universe, in this anthology series I should say, is based around this concept of something that I am calling the silent hour. And so the silent hour is effectively it's sort of a moment in time that affects an individual, specific person, where they're sort of transported to another plane of existence that mirrors their own. If you have seen Stranger Things, that is a good comparison there with the, what was it called? I forget. Anyway, if you've seen Stranger Things, you know what I'm talking about. That's probably the closest thing that other people have probably seen that I can relate it to. So similar to that concept, the silent hour effectively takes you to another dimension. And you can't tell right away because it's a mirror of our own world until you start to see things that are just off, until the creepy things start to happen. And so, yeah, all these games in this series are going to include that in some aspect. This game as well, the maze game, is going to include obviously that same idea, same concept. And I don't really want to say too much more because I don't want to spoil anything else, but I hope that gives you guys an idea that's exciting and interesting. If you do want to know a little bit more, of course, as I keep mentioning, please go watch the short film on my channel, Radio Static. But also I had a teaser video, which was technically its own short film by itself that's just a few minutes long. It's called The Clock That Stood Still. And that one has a few Easter eggs in it. There aren't many Easter eggs and they are a bit hard to spot. But if you are interested in this concept, this idea, and you want to know more, I would highly recommend watching that one as well. So it's called The Clock That Stood Still. It's also my channel. I was using it as a teaser for the Radio Static, but if you want to try and find some of the Easter eggs in there and get a little bit more information on the silent hour and what that means, I would highly recommend that. So yeah, hope that sounds interesting to you guys. This is it, Nathan. Think of all those projects you want to do. All the amazing things that are in the palm of your hands if you would just get up. That's right. It's time to face a new... I have returned a better, stronger, wiser man. And now it's time to get into the finale of this video. So a few disclaimers before I start. Please keep in mind that this is my very first time in Unreal Engine and doing any sort of coding at all. So my experience is literally zero, and it took a lot of effort. And it was very overwhelming, the whole process, really. So it took a lot of trial and error to get these things running the way, or anywhere near the way that I hoped they would. And I'm still very proud of myself and what I accomplished. It's still something. It's something. It's a huge step forward for me, and it really makes me excited about what else I can do to bring my own projects to life going forward. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into this quote-unquote game that I have made. So to start here, obviously, we are on the main menu screen, which may not seem like much, but it took me a while to figure out how the widget system worked to create these menu screens with their various buttons and functions. And on top of that, it also took me quite a while just to figure out how to get the mouse to work on this screen, because I didn't realize you have to set up custom player controllers and all their various settings for each level. So the main level that I started off with for this project didn't have the mouse support the way that I needed it, so I basically had to look through several YouTube videos just to figure out how to set up the mouse function so that I could click things and see where my mouse is on the screen. So yeah, just seeing the mouse move around the screen is a huge win for me. And you'll see there's a few options here. One of them being options, which doesn't actually go anywhere. I just included that because it was part of the tutorial that I watched. There's a quit button, which obviously quits the game, so I'm not going to do that one. And obviously there's my concept art in the background there, just as a nice little touch. And yeah, so let's get this baby started. So we load into a creepy corn maze environment, of course. There's nothing that exciting here. I mean, you guys have already seen this. It's been so many weeks, I forget which things I've actually recorded and are going to end up in the video, but I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this already earlier in the video. But yeah, so just my basic gray corn stalks, some nice textured ground, and if I press F, my flashlight turns off. That's pretty exciting. So yeah, I can turn my flashlight on and off. If I have my flashlight on and I'm looking up here, that's pretty spooky, right? That's a ghost right there. It might just look like a ball to you, but that's a ghost. Oh, see? And so if I hover over it, it fades in. If I hover off of it, it fades out. But it also works with the flashlight. It only works if the flashlight is on it. So if I turn the flashlight off, it also fades out. And if I turn the flashlight on, it also fades in. So yeah, it's like two different functions. I have to be hovering over it, like looking at it, and then I also have to have my flashlight on. And so, believe it or not, doing that was a lot more difficult than it should have been. And yeah, so now we're going to go forward. And once I go around this corner here, I hope the recording picks it up, but you can start to hear some audio.
And this is the music piece that obviously I showed you guys earlier. Let me just spin around here awkwardly to show you that it's directional. So it comes from a source in a specific spot. So you can kind of be guided to where the sound is coming from. Do you guys like that vine boom sound effect I used? So yeah, once I'm looking in the right direction here.
Change the world. My final message. Goodbye.
My favorite part. Well, if that didn't spook you guys, I don't know what will. But yeah, so I didn't even have a chance to explain, that just kind of happened suddenly. Essentially, I'll go through the code in a bit with you guys too, but there is an invisible wall here, and it basically traces where the player is looking. So as long as I'm looking at the wall, it allows me to activate that jump scare. So it starts when I round this, oops, where did I go? I got lost in the corn stalks. Ah, there we go. So it starts when I round this corner at the beginning, the music plays. The music is meant to guide me towards the jump scare, and then as soon as I look in the right direction, that sign pops out, makes that amazing sound effect that is terrifying, spine tingling, and then after it does that the first time, it loops, does it again without the sound effect, and then it sets off a totally different sequence of animations where it slides out, plays that second amazing audio clip, and then floats away to heaven, I guess. And yeah. And then I'll just walk through this maze, blah, blah, blah. Hey, I did it! I got to the end. Now I could either exit the game again, or I could restart if I felt like, which I don't know why you would, but. So I'm gonna head out of here. There we go. So yeah, that was my game. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys see the potential in it. Probably only I can, but who knows? Maybe you guys can see where that's leading and how that could turn into an actually good, fully fleshed out game eventually. And yeah, so next thing we're gonna do is go through the code that made that happen. And hopefully I didn't mess literally everything up. All right, let's see if I can keep this short and sweet, but I'm going to try and go over some of the code that I implemented, or more accurately, that I stole from various YouTube videos to make these interactions happen in my game. So first of all, here we are in the level, just flying around. This is the ghost here. I'm not going to go over that code just because I have so much to go over already, and like I said, I don't want this to drag on too long. Plus, I barely understand it myself, so chances are you guys really definitely won't understand when I try to explain it. But pretty much, here is the jump scare element. This is like the signpost thing that rotates out into the player's view. And the first part of that is in the player character blueprints here. Oh, actually, event graph. So actually, real quick, here's the flashlight. It's really simple. It's just a flip-flop. So basically the flashlight starts on. When I press the button for it, it sets the visibility to off. And then when I press it again, it sets it back to on and just flip-flops between those two. This stuff is about the ghost visibility, which I mentioned I'm not going to go over. All that's the ghost visibility again. But down here, this is the only part that pertains to the jump scare. So it's the vision trace. So event tick, it just means it's firing pretty much constantly on every frame. And then that goes into this function here, which I had open to start with, but I'm not going to even attempt to explain all of this, but you'll just have to trust me here that this pretty much gets the player location and rotation, fires off traces from where that is, so basically wherever the player's looking. And then that makes sure that it is hitting that trigger wall, which I mentioned, and let me just show you in the level here. It's invisible, but it's right behind Actually, let me see if I can make this visible real quick. All right, here you go. So this is the trigger wall. So it's just an invisible wall, but it's there to detect when the player is looking at it, and that's essentially it. So when I go back here, yeah, those rays that are being cast from wherever the player is looking, if they hit that trigger wall, they then activate this event, which brings us over to this is the actual signpost thing that jumps out at you. So this is going to be a long one. I'm going to try my best here. I apologize if this makes no sense, but so there's a on overlap component here. This is also for a box, an overlap box. Oops. Back to level here, you can kind of see there's this invisible box that is part of the jump scare area here. There's this box around here. I don't know if you can see it that well. It's invisible again, but it's just to detect collisions and overlaps inside of it. And so once you're overlapping that, so essentially once the player enters the area near the jump scare, it starts to set a few of these things off. So it starts by playing that music. That's why you start to hear the music when you just get close to it and start rounding that corner. Blah, 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 cast to first person, stuff I'm not going to explain. Oh yeah, and so this is when it's binding to that event earlier. So once the player's looking at the trigger wall, that sets off this event. So now the jump scare itself is binding to that event, which sets off its own code. And then this basically just is a branch that makes it play the two different animations. So the first time that you activate it, it plays the animation with the sound effect. Blah, 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 some more stuff. Like I said, if I try to explain every note in here, I'm probably going to get confused myself, so it's probably just better that I skim through it a bit here. But yeah, so it plays the one animation with the audio cue. So that's this one here, the jump scare. And then the second time, if you keep looking at it, it plays the not jump scare, which is the same thing just without the audio cue. And then it plays this a couple of times. I have it set so I can, using this number down here, I can determine how many times it plays with no audio before it moves on to the third animation sequence, where it basically slides out in front of the player, reads that amazing line, and then ascends to heaven. It really goes to show, I mean, I sort of understood this before, or at least I thought I did, but it is insane how much effort has to go into some of the simplest things when you actually have to code it like this. And this is the easy stuff too, because this is just Unreal Engine's blueprints. I can't imagine trying to learn and make this happen with C++ or whatever other coding language. So yeah, I'm just gonna stick with the blueprints for now, because that's a system I can at least try to wrap my head around. So it's kind of a mess, and I'm sure there are much better, much more efficient ways I could have done most of this. If any of you watching this right now happen to be people who are familiar with coding, or specifically with Unreal Engine and blueprints, I would love to hear from you. I'm sure I've done almost everything wrong that I possibly could have, but I would really appreciate any feedback and help with this, because it's something I definitely want to learn and get better at, so I can basically just have plans for what I want to happen in my games and be able to execute them with a lot less failure and trial and error. So yeah.
All right, Cody, Nathan, you've tortured them enough. Get away with you. Make some room. Oh, all right. You guys have suffered enough, I feel like. So, in any case, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I just wanted to quickly say, if you have any feedback for me, be it on my art, on my game ideas, on my amazing coding skills, or even just on the editing of these videos, I would be very happy to hear from you guys. But all that said,
I will hopefully see you guys again in about another month with another update. See you around.